Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle and this is Michelle Reads YA. Today I will be doing my May wrap-up. It's almost the end of May. I'm just gonna do it now. I had a great reading month this month. I have read 14 books. Most of them were audiobooks, and I read a 500-page book in 3 days for a video, so I'll talk about that one. But let's get started. So the first book that I read and DNF'd for May was The Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. So I got an arc of this and didn't read it in time, but still wanted to read it, and I got 30% in before I decided to DNF. Here's the thing. I've really wanted to like Veronica Roth's other books. The only one I've liked so far is Divergent. Many of us can agree that the series goes pretty far downhill after Divergent. Insurgent was a mess. Don't even get us started on Allegiant. I don't even think I could reread it anymore. I then tried Carve the Mark, which was fantasy, and I am not a fantasy reader. That's just not my jam, and I really didn't like it. Actually, I hated it, so no. So when Veronica Roth decided to venture into adult fiction, I was pretty excited, except it wasn't for me. So the premise of this book is that there are 5 heroes who saved the world about 5 years ago. I think it was 5 or 10 years ago. And they are basically, you get to learn about their lives after they've saved the world. However, around 30% in, we get to a point where there's a parallel universe, and I was out. It's not for me. Honestly, anytime I thought about picking up this book, I just really didn't want to. And once we hit the parallel universe, I knew it wasn't for me. So I bowed out. I want to like a book by Veronica Roth as much as I liked Divergent, and it's just not happening. Am I gonna keep trying? Probably, but like Divergent was top tier, and everything else she's done is just, for me, sucked. So we'll see. This was a DNF 30% in. Not mad about it. Okay. The next book that I read, I actually listened to, and that is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I was rereading the original trilogy before we got to the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This was the first time I listened to it. I listened to Tatiana, that narrator, and it was so good. I remember when I first read this 8 years ago, 10 years ago, a while ago, I was pretty underwhelmed by it just because Hunger Games and Catching Fire were so good. And for some reason, the middle of Mockingjay really drags, and I still think that's true. But after rereading it and listening to it and watching the movies several times, I really appreciated this book more this time and ended up giving it 5 stars. I just think how Katniss never intended to be part of the rebellion. She just wanted to save her sister really touched me this time, and she was all of a sudden the face of this rebellion she didn't want to be a part of, which I really liked. I thought it was good. I cried at the epilogue, so I'm so glad I reread the original trilogy. It was a great time. I love Tatiana narrator. She was great, so I definitely recommend the audiobooks. It was a great one. So the next book that I read is actually a reread, and that is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. I reread this so I could hop right into One of Us is Next, and I'm glad I did. So I still gave this 4 stars, even though I knew what was going to happen. I just thought it was really well written and funny, and I loved all the characters. So the premise of this book is that 5 kids are in detention, and one of them dies while in detention, and the 4 remaining the 4 remaining kids are investigated by police. And then at the end you find out what really happens to the kid who died, and I still think it's good. Maybe I'm just so starved for YA mystery, but I think the writing of this one is really good. So this was a reread, 4 stars. And then the next book that I read, I jumped right into One of Us Next by Karen M. McManus. I really like this. So basically this takes place 1 year after the events of One of Us is Lying, and we are introduced to 3 different main characters. One of them is the sister of one of the main characters in One of Us is Lying, which I really liked, and the original 4 are in this book just like kind of outside. Either way, the whole time I was reading this, it was a solid 3 stars until we got to the end of this book and it completely blew me away and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I don't know if there's going to be another one, but I would really like there to be another one because it kind of ended so abruptly, and I would love to see what the aftermath of the ending of One of Us is Next could turn into if there's another one. Either way, I give this 4 stars. I really like the concept of this. It was completely new characters, but the original 4 characters were still in it, kind of just separate, which I really appreciated. So I thought this was good. I really like her and McManus, so I think she writes really good mysteries. So the next book that I listened to was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is a Reese's book club pick, and I'm like totally into her book club now. I really like it. I listened to this on audiobook, and for me, I did not like the narrator, which is why I think I ended up only giving this 3 stars. But the premise of this book is that she goes by Alix, which was super annoying, is a white privileged lady living in, I believe they're in Pennsylvania, and she's like a self-made entrepreneur, and she has a black baby's nanny for her daughter, Amira, and Amira goes to the grocery store with Alix's daughter, and she is accused of kidnapping the little white girl, and it's videotaped, and it's embarrassing, and she's racially profiled, and it's awful. However, I think this was too short, and I didn't like the audiobook narrator. Also, I think it focused too much on Alix, the white woman, and not enough on Amira, who was in this situation. And also, I just hated Alix and how they connected in the middle. They both end up like dating the same guy at one point, and I just I didn't love how that happened. So I ended up giving this 3 stars. I think maybe if I had read it physically, I would have appreciated it more, but I thought it was pretty good, and especially now it's really relevant. So definitely give this one a try. It was 3 stars. 3 stars isn't bad. Okay, the next book that I attempted to read and DNF'd, I think I only DNF'd these 2 books, so that's pretty good, is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I also listened to this and it was just not happening for me. I am not a big fan of sci-fi, and I felt like there was just so much world building. Also, I will mention that I watched the movie first and I hated the movie. Yeah, I think a lot of us can agree that it sucked. So for me, this was the world building. We'd start to get into like a lot of action in this book, and then like I feel like the author just went into a ton of world building, and it like slowed down the story for me. Also, I didn't get a lot of the 80s references because I was not around in the 80s, so to me it was boring. I believe I got 30% into this as well on audiobook, and it just wasn't for me. So the next book that I read was an ARC by Karen M. McManus, and that is The Cousins. I did not like this. This comes out in December of 2020, and it was not a strong one for me. The premise of this book is that 3 cousins who are not close all get letters from their grandmother, who they are not close with. They've never met her. The grandmother cut off all her children, and they are invited to the grandmother's like resort that she runs, and they all meet up and there's a mystery, and this one just really fell flat for me. I didn't think it was like a big reveal, and like not like how I just read One of Us Is Next and the ending was like so shocking, and then I got into this one and I was like, that's it? Ooh. So for me, this was not a good one. I gave this 2 stars. It comes out in December 2020. I don't think it was a strong mystery from her, and she is a mystery writer. So I did not like it. I will not be buying it. And I didn't get a chance to look at other reviews, but some people are like pumped about it, thought it was so good, and then other people were on my side and they were like, that's it. And that's exactly how I feel. Like, that was it, and it was not good. The next book that I listened to for the first time is my favorite book, and that is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I have read this book I think 4 or 5 times, and I have never listened to it, but I got a free credit on Audible, and it's only on Audible, so I decided to listen to it. I gave 5 stars. I'll probably always give it 5 stars. Even my husband liked it, so that's saying something. I did not super love this audiobook narrator. I think she sounded a little too old to be 17-year-old Andy, and I didn't love her guy voices. They just sounded like a girl. So yeah, but I'm always gonna give this book 5 stars. So 5 stars for my favorite book. The next book that I read was The Betrothed by Kiera Cass. I don't even know how to talk about this book because it was a garbage fire. I gave this book 1 star. I did not DNF this book. I should have. I kept hearing that the ending was really, really good and really, really shocking, and so I kept chugging along because I wanted to get to the ending to see if it was good, and it certainly was not, folks. This was not a good book. The issue with this book is everything, but mostly that there is no plot, no character development. The characters are so one-dimensional, and it's insta-love in the most awful way. There was no chemistry between any of the characters. I hated this book so much. Please do yourself a favor and do not read this book. I love the Selection series by Kiera Cass. We'll always recommend that, but this was a garbage fire. 1 star. The next book that I read was Would Like to Meet by Rachel Winters. And it turns out that I don't like adult romance because I gave this 2 stars. I also hated this book as well, so it was not a good time. But the premise of this book is that she is an assistant for a company that does screenwriting, and she wants to be a screenwriter, and she does all these meet cutes to help this guy who's supposed to write a movie. And anyway, it was stupid. I just really don't like adult romances, and I thought I did, but they're all so predictable, and I hate that at the end they had only known each other for 3 months and he was declaring his love for her and they weren't even dating. That's a no from me. I don't think that's very realistic, and it's cringy, and I just don't like it. So this was 2 stars. So the next book that I listened to for the first time is a reread, and that is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Obviously the news came out about Midnight Sun and I freaked out and had a great time freaking out. So I was like, what better time to reread Twilight? So I listened to it for the first time. Did not love the narration. She basically just read the book and there was no different voices for Edward or Jacob or Billy. It was just her voice, which is something I really don't like. Like, if you're going to voice act, I need you to act and not just read. And she definitely just read the book, but obviously I still gave it 5 stars. I'll always give this trashy book 5 stars. I love Twilight. And then the next book that I listened to after Twilight was Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman, I think. I had watched the movie before I read the book and then listened to this on audiobook, and Armie Hammer is the one who reads it, except he reads it as Elio and not Oliver. So that was pretty confusing to begin with. And then the ending was different than the movie. I just expected Timothée Chalamet to be looking in the fire for 4 minutes, and it's a completely different ending, which threw me off, but I think it was good. So I gave this book 3 stars. I would definitely read it again. It was a little pretentious, I'm not going to lie, but I enjoyed my time listening to it. The next book that I read, unfortunately, was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I have a vlog of me reading this. I will put it in the cards up here. I gave this book 1.5 stars. I had a really terrible time reading this, and you can see it in my vlog, but my main issue with this is that I don't think it was a necessary book. Was it a money grab for Suzanne Collins? That's kind of what I think, because it did nothing for the original trilogy. Snow was not a character I wanted to read about in any capacity and still did it, and I hated the romance. So if you want to see the vlog for how I feel about that, I'll link it up below, but this was not it. This was not it. And the last book that I read for May was another reread. I'm on a rereading streak. It's helping me in life. And that is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I listened to this on audiobook. It was the Jim Dale narration, which is fine. I don't love this narration, but what are you gonna do? It's the only one my library has. I ended up giving this 5 stars. It's not my favorite in the series, but it's also not my least favorite. My least favorite is Order of the Phoenix. It is fucking long, and it's so long, and it doesn't need to be. So I ended up giving this 5 stars. I didn't love Jim Dale narration, but I love Harry Potter. So what are you gonna do? So that is everything that I read for the month of May. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and if you like them. Thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!